What's going on, everybody? I'm Patrick from POWLAX, and in this video we are going to be continuing our building box pick series with 4V, down pick, and cycle. In this video we're going to be glossing over some of the intricacies of box picking, so if you want to learn more about actual box picking first before you watch this video, you can check that out by clicking this link up here in the corner and watching that video first. Also, we've already gone through how to build our 2V and 3V box picks, so those videos are available in the description below. If you'd like to print out the playbook PDF that corresponds to this drill, you can get that at patreon.com/POWLAX by clicking this link up in the corner or clicking the link down in the description. If you're watching on Facebook, it'll take you to patreon.com/POWLAX, and you'll have to join the $1 tier because this is one of our drill videos. So just a quick background on exactly kind of what we're trying to do. First, we're going to do our 4VO motion offense so that our players can get an understanding of how the motion works. Then we're going to run 4v3s because the offense will have an advantage, meaning that every time they run a pick and their cycle, they're going to have some type of advantage that they can hit. This also puts one player backside so that they're going to learn how to rotate if a pick works in an actual game. Then we're going to go to our 4v4 even series, which will make the players execute good picks in order to find the looks that they were finding here often. So now we're going to rep through our 4VOs with 4 players and no defense. And I want to point out a couple things first. Notice that the ball is starting with L1. We're going to initiate this motion with a pass across. And so because the ball is top left, the player on the left is going to be out a bit, whereas the player on the right is going to be in on the back pipe. And so we're kind of going to see where that fits in later. So as the ball is passed across, our motions are going to start, and that's going to cause R2 to get out the side. So basically, as the motion is running, we're going to want players on the backside pipe, and so we're going to start him in that position just to kind of make that point. Now, after L1 throws the ball across, he is now going to cut the middle, and he will be posted up on the back pipe, and that's going to cause L2 to cycle to the top. As L1 and L2 are cycling, we're going to get our pass down pick down on the right side. So R1 is going to pass down to R2, who just came off. He's going to cut the middle, step out to set a pick for R2. R2 is going to use a double move or post up and come off of this pick. As he comes off of the pick, R1 is always going to slip to the goal, and that is going to put him on the back pipe like we were just talking about. Once R2 comes off of this pick, he's going to move the ball to L2, and then he is going to cut the middle, starting the cycle on this side, and R1 will come off around him and end up at the top. Now, L2 and L1, they have to execute their pass down pick down. So L1 is going to come out, L2 is going to pass the ball down, L2 is going to cut the middle, come inside out to set a pick for L1. L1 is going to use a double move and come off the pick, and L2 will be then slipping to the goal. So as we're repping through that, we want our players to find a flow to the offense, and then we want them to try and find a bunch of the different looks. And so as he's coming off of this pick, he can hit the slip, he can pass to R1 who just cycled up, and R1 could hit the slip, he could pass to R2 on the backside pipe, and there are all kinds of different looks that these players can find once they have the flow down. And so what I like to do is I like to have the players run through probably 4 picks, so pick on both sides 2 times, and then once they have the flow down, I'll say, all right, you can shoot, and they have to try to find a look that has at least 2 passes. So if L1 comes off and he passes to R1, R1 has to make one more pass, hopefully to this slipping player for a nation's look, but this way they start to look for some of the looks that aren't as likely. Another good look they could find is L1 could pass down to L2 and he could pass across to R2 on the back pipe. And so all we're trying to do here is have them get the flow and then try to execute what I'll call a pretty look. Before we get into the live sets, it's important that you know that none of the drills that we were doing in the videos were only the drills that we just went over. They were actually a combination of 3v2 to 4v3s or up pick to down pick 4v3s or 4v4s. Even though we weren't running these drills alone, the videos will convey the concepts. And you'll definitely realize that here because we never really got a good flow of offense within our 4v3s. We were playing more freely, and so I actually had to just stitch this together to show you exactly how the offense works. We get a pass across, the defense rotates, a pass down, pick down on the righty side, the lefties cycle, a pass across, pass down, pick down, a cycle on the backside, and then the pass goes over again. And so even though it's not one clip, you see that we need to have a pass down, pick down, ball side, and a cycle on the backside. Now this next clip is very cool because we actually get to see this offense play out in a live high-level game. As we start the clip, the team is exchanging, but we get a nice pass down, push to the middle, pick down, ball goes across, pass down, pick down, all the players are cycling backside. The players are patient. We get another pick down ball side. He steps over and takes his shot. Notice how it was a lot of movement. It wasn't all completely choreographed, but we need to choreograph it so that the players learn their options and learn how they're supposed to be moving. As we are getting to our 4v3s and 4v4s, there are a couple of ways that we can set up the drill. The easiest thing to do is have lines be up top for players to enter the drill as they go, but we can also make it so that everybody plays offense and defense by having the players go offense the first rep to defense the second rep and then get back in line. Another thing we can do is every rep we can have the players compete. So we'll give each group 3 reps. The first team to score 2 goals or cause a turnover, that team will be the winner. The final thing we can do is once we get to 4v4, we can play fireball, where a coach will throw the ball anywhere on the floor. Whichever team picks it up, moves it back to coach, will get it back and be on offense. And then as they're playing, if the defense causes a turnover, they can pick it up, move it to coach, and then get the ball back. As you're running these drills, be aware that you may want to start keeping a shot clock, since we're going to have a shot clock when we get to actual games within box. Once our players have a good understanding of how the motion runs, we're going to go into our 4v3 series. So as we start the 4v3, D1 is going to be ball. He's going to be defending L1. D5 is going to be splitting R1 and R2. And usually we'd like to have him down on this back pipe. Like as the drill runs, we want this backside player on him because he's the most dangerous. But for this, we're just going to have him in this passing lane and prepare for the first pass. D6 is now splitting L2 and R2, and he is awaiting a possible pass down to L2, but so that's where our defenders will start. First thing that's going to happen is we're going to have a pass across to R1. R2 is going to step out. We're going to get a pass down to R2, and now this side will run the pick, this side will run the cycle. So L1 now is going to cut the middle, and he's going to try to get ball side of D1. L2 is going to cycle to the top, and eventually we'll get into backside picking, but we're not going to cover it in this video. But if you want L1 to pick down and L2 to come over, you can absolutely add that in. So as L1 cuts the middle, D1 is going to follow him down and make sure that he defends him the entire time. As the pass came over, D5 is going to go play R1, and as the pass comes down, he is then going to split to get into the middle. And because R1 is going to come down to pick, he's going to follow him through. So he's coming down with him. And now as he goes to set this pick, D5 is not going to follow him out because D6 should have rotated over, and now he's defending R2. As R2 catches the ball, he's going to use a double move to try to get to this pick. So as we're getting to the pick, we've got a pass across, pass down. Player goes inside out to set the pick. The backside is cycling. Now, defensively, what we're left with is a player who's on ball getting picked, another player who should be a little further inside who's watching the pick happen, and another backside player who's defending the 2 players backside. And so now that we are to this pick, we're going to talk about some of the defensive principles. So the first thing I want to say is that the reason that D5 isn't coming to play this pick is because we're working on the backside rotations within our 4v3 series. So once we add our 4th player, he will actually be the player who is in this pick. But right now, D5 has to split between R1 and L2, and D1 has to split between L1 and L2. So defensively, what we'd like to have happen is we would like for D6 to get through this pick. So as R2 carries off the pick, we would like D6 to stay with it or bump and come back off of it. And so as that happens, R1 slips, and D5 will be picking up R1. In this clip, we get a pass across, pass down, the defense rotates. Now watch how the player on ball gets through this pick. This is going to leave the player who is watching the play able to defend the slip. So now, as the ball is passed, we're just going to go over our quick rotation. So L2 catches the ball here, L1 comes out, the ball is passed down to L1. And so as these passes are made, our defenders are going to rotate in this fashion. D1 is going to come up to play L2, and D5, now splitting R1 and L1, is going to get through to play the ball here, and then D6 is going to get in, and he'll be our new backside defender. As the players are playing, the rotations may change depending on which player is closer to the opposite side, but the important thing is that the players are reading and recognizing the fact that they have to rotate. So like we just showed, if D6 can get through the pick like we would have liked, D5 will be picking up R1. But if the pick does work and R2 comes over and then we have got R1 slipping to the goal, now because the pick worked and he can't get through here, we're going to want D5 to slide up to R2 because he is now uncovered. Now, D6 needs to try to get back under R1 so that the offense doesn't get an advantage within this pick. Now, as the ball moves, we're going to have a slightly different rotation. As the ball moves to L2, D1 will still slide up, but now, as L1 comes out, we get a nice pass down. Now it'll be D6 who ends up coming all the way across the floor to play L1. And so depending on how the pick plays out, two different players could be rotating through. It just really depends on how the players play this pick. In this clip, we've got a good pick down, pass across, pass down, and notice how the player who was originally picked is the one who has to get over to play the ball as it goes down the opposite side. Now this next clip is the same clip we showed you earlier where they passed to the slip, but I just want to show you how the reversal would happen. So if the player gets through the pick and the pass goes across and down, notice how it's the player who is watching the pick who would have to rotate to that opposite side. So the final look we're going to cover within the 4v3s is what happens if the pick works really, really well, meaning that R1 is now goal side. If the pick works well and R2 passes to R1 on his slip, now if he's open to the goal, we're going to have to rotate here, which should leave players backside, but we definitely don't want to leave a player open in the middle of the floor. We want to rotate even if it means they have to make another pass. And so this is actually a look where if D1 is aware, he can definitely surprise him on his slip. Now that we understand what the defense is going to try to do, we're going to go over the offensive looks. So first thing is if this pick works and he comes over the top uncovered, he can absolutely turn the corner and shoot. So this is a clip that's going to show you kind of how not to come off a pick. As this player comes off the pick, he doesn't actually push to the middle. He ends up shooting because I was yelling at him to step in, but we really want to make sure as our players are coming off picks that they are pushing to the middle of the field. But if he gets the rotation from D5, now we are trying to have our swing it beat their rotation. So as R2 comes off, he's still covered. Now he moves it to L2. D1 will slide up, and hopefully we can beat this recovery, and L1 will be open to shoot here, and D6 won't be able to get to him quick enough. So here we get a good double move before a pick down. The ball is passed across and then down. And now see how we beat the defensive rotation by swinging the ball. Now as the ball is swinging, we don't always have to swing it the whole way. Notice how we get a great pass down pick down here. The ball swings to the opposite side. And now the player who is high takes a face dodge, gets in on goal, and shoots. The next set of looks that we're going to have is if this pick works well. So if R1 picks goal side really well, and then D6 ends up trailing him, now we are going to throw to the slipping player. And so if he catches the ball and D1 does not rotate over, he can absolutely shoot. If D1 does rotate over, now he can pass up to L2 or through to L1. So this clip is from our 3v2 series, but it shows the exact same point. We get a nice pass down, pick down, the player slips, he gets hit by a beautiful BTB, gets to the cage, and shoots. Now, had this backside defenseman rotated over, we'd hope that he'd have time to pass it across to the player on the backside. The next series of looks we're going to have is our two pass options. So let's say R2 comes over this pick, the pick does work, so he draws D5, and now R1 is open, slipping to the goal. D6 is here. We can have a two pass hit the slip where it'll go up to L2 and then it'll come back down to R1. So we start here with a nice pick down, the ball is thrown across, and that player then hits the slipping player. The other thing that we can have them do is because R2 is now having to cut the middle, he can cut and receive a give and go pass from L2. And so some of these looks are a little bit more difficult to find than others, but the key here is that they find them when they are 4v3 so that they might be able to see them in their 4v4 looks. A quick note, as you're running this drill, I like to have the players do a pass down, pick down here, pass down, pick down here before they are allowed to shoot, so the defense gets a lot of experience learning how to rotate, and so the offense understands how the offense is going to flow once we get to our 4v4 set. Another quick note about this drill is that we don't want to tell the players what to find. We want to show them how to get to the picks and have them read them after. So you can instruct them on where they should be looking, but for the most part, as they are in the drills, we want to make sure that they are reading the play and reacting so that once we get to our 5-on-5 or even our 4v4, once they actually start to play, they can make the reads and make their own decisions. So once the offensive players have seen their looks, the defense has learned how we need to rotate once the offense gains an advantage. Now we can move into our 4v4 set. So in the same manner that we went through the 4v3s, we're going to show getting to the pick, and then we're going to show all of the things after the pick. So the first thing we have is a pass across the top, and now D5, who was sloughed in, ready to help, is going to go play it. Once the pass happens, that means we are cutting the middle with L1. He's going to try to get around, and L2 is going to cycle to the top. Once he sees the pass, R2 is going to step out. R1 is going to move the ball quickly to him, which means D6 is going to go out to play him. And now, after the pass, R1 is going to push D5 into the middle, and he is going to step out to try to set the pick. R2 will use a double move, and he's going to come to the pick. As R1 is pushing D5, this time we're not going to have him hang back. He's going to follow it out, get right to the pick, and as this is happening, he is going to say pick coming left to D6 to make sure he knows that a pick is coming. Now, for the cycle defense, we're just staying with our men. So D1 is going to guard him all the way through. Once he's in, he needs to be sideways, watching the pick, seeing if an advantage happens. And D2 is also going to be sideways, and he is going to watch L2 as he comes to the top and look and see if he can help if there's an advantage with the pick. So we start this clip about halfway through. We get a nice little pick down. The player tries to come off of it, and what we're left with defensively is a player on ball who's getting picked, another player who is at the pick ready to switch, make a play there. Then we have two players who are now backside, one with the player who is high, one with the player who is low, and they are waiting to see if an advantage is given so they know to rotate. Now that we are at our pick, we're going to go through the defensive options. And the first difference is that now we are actually utilizing the correct picking defense because we are even. We're still focusing on rotating, but only if the offense causes an advantage. So the first thing that we'd like to have happen is as R2 carries off this pick, we'd like for D6 to just stay with the pick. If he can get through the pick, they don't have an advantage. Now, if the pick works, that's where we're going to see all of our defensive rotation stuff come through. So first, if R2 carries over and D5 doesn't switch, now we're going to have to rotate. So R2 would try to get to the middle, and as he does that, D2 would probably be the one to slide, and now the offense would push through their series. If he pushes the ball up and then down, now we've got to rotate D1 up, and we have to have either D5 or D6 rotate over to L1. Now, if the pick works and D5 switches, which he'll yell out switch to D6, so he comes up, if we can get D6 to switch effectively by coming around, they're not going to have an advantage. So now we're good there. Here's a little clip from the Iroquois-Canada game. It's a great little switch. Usually the player who is backside would call this switch, but because he sees it coming, he can direct the player behind him to come around and make sure that he switches. But if R1 sets a good pick and he slips goal side and D6 is trailing him, R2 is going to be able to pass it to R1, which will cause a rotation of D1 over and D2 down so that they can't hit their passes to the back pipe and they'll have to throw up to the least dangerous player. In the event that R2 passes up to L2, now we have more time for D6 to try to cover up R1. So now we're going to go over the offensive looks. So as R2 comes off this pick, if the pick works well and D5 doesn't switch, now he's going to step in and shoot. If he does draw D2, now we are trying to have our ball movement beat their rotation. So it'll come to L2, it'll come down to L1, and hopefully we can get the ball to here before D5 or D6 can get to that rotation. Now, if the defense does switch effectively, but we get a good pick with R1, and R1 ends up goal side of D6, now we can see our hit the slip options. So as R2 comes off, D5 switches effectively, and hopefully R2 can hit R1 with his stick in front on this slip. Now our defense is going to rotate, and now R1 can feed it through to L1, or if D2 comes down quickly, he can then feed it through to L2. So the trouble here is, as R1 catches this ball, he may have a good look up to L2, but it's definitely a tough pass to make. As he accepts it's over his shoulder, he's kind of got to get back to here to throw it, and we never want him to catch the ball back behind him because D6 is trailing him and he can give a trail check. So in this clip, we get a nice little pick down. He comes off, he's trying to get to the middle. He tries to throw it to the slipping player, but it gets knocked down. But you see the idea how if we get off of that pick, we isolate the player who is watching the pick, and now if we draw him, we can then hit the player who is slipping. So the final looks that we're gonna have are our two pass looks. And so as R2 comes off the pick, let's say the pick works well, R1 is once again goal side of D6. And now because the switch worked well, R2 is going to move the ball quickly to L2. And now L2 can find R1 on the slip, or because R2 is now going to be cutting over the top, he can then find R2 for this give and go. So this is the clip of the first example. We get a great little nations look. We've got a pick down on the left side, the ball goes across, and that player hits the slipping player. As you can see here, I am super pumped that we hit this play. And so one of the keys to remember here is that L2 didn't just start here. He cycled up. And so the odds of D2 being very close to him and playing him are going to be pretty rare. And if we really want to free him up so that he has good looks back across the floor, we can make sure that we pick down with L1 as we are getting to the pick. Notice that as this player is coming off of this pick, backside, the player who is cycling, cutting the middle, picks the defenseman in, which frees up the player coming over the top in the cycle. Once again, it's important that we show these players these principles, these ideas, but then that they are the ones who play it out. So that concludes our 4V down pick and cycle video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, definitely hit that like button and subscribe. We'll be doing a up pick and cycle video here in the next couple days. If you'd like to download the drill PDF that corresponds to this video, you'll have to go to patreon.com/POWLAX and become a $1 per month patron. That's where all of the drill PDFs are. I'll put a link right up here in the corner. Have a good one, and I will see you in the next video.